of Mr. President Donald Trump taking or starting his tenure inside the Oval Office in Washington, D.C., reflecting that new policies over the Middle East, his honest intention and a comprehensive new look over fighting and combating terrorism, collaborating with the administration of our President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, and also the new executive order that he signed banning 7 countries among the Muslim countries from entering the United States, or travel ban that is imposed on those 7 countries. I mean, preventing them from entering that, and that particular decision stopped by some judges in some states. Appeal from the court in San Francisco, and of course lots of statements that he released later on. He said that he's going to issue another order, and many other steps that he has been taking ever since he stepped into office, releasing some statements that he's going to take the U.S. administration, the U.S. embassy from to Jerusalem, Al-Quds, which is going to be bad news and very contradicting news with his new policy of fighting terrorism. I mean, lots of issues that are related with the U.S. administration and the reflection of that new administration in the Middle East. And we're very delighted to have with us Dr. Ibrahim Ghazawy, our strategic analyst and, of course, political analyst as well. Good morning, Dr. Ghazawy.
Good morning.
How are you doing, sir?
Thank you.
A very good morning to you, sir. As Dina said, it's about Trump's policies, and it's in specific regarding the Middle East and regarding the Islamic world in general. The first 2 reactions regarding this came from Iraq and from Syria. From Iraq, in a phone call between Haidar al-Abadi, the Iraqi Prime Minister, to President Trump, he asked him to lift this ban on the Iraqis, and Trump promised that he is going to review this issue. The second came through an interview by President Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian president, to Yahoo News, in which, when he was asked in specific about this ban, he said that this is an internal sovereignty issue of the United States, so I'm not going to comment on it. How do you see those 2 reactions first? And also the choice of those 7 countries, mostly the majority of its population are Muslims.
Well, let me start with reiterating the fact that President Trump or any U.S. president, whoever the name was, he doesn't have that sort of open hand in formulating the internal and external United States policies. First of all, the president there is a party figure, whether a Republic or a Democrat. So President Trump is more or less an expression of the Republican Party in the United States. Yes, probably he himself as a person, he has a unique character of openly confronting a lot of issues that has been previously handled with more diplomatic ways and manners. Now it looks like this diplomacy is not anymore, workable for him.
Yeah.
But he's still a president of the United States, and he is still also sort of an executive. Top executive in terms of the policies of the Republican Party. We have to remember that. That means simply that he is not doing anything on his own self or for his own self. He is an expression of the American interests from the point of view of the Republican Party. That's why we have seen a lot of opposition to his executive order to ban the citizens of 7 Middle Eastern countries, as you said, mostly Muslim population in these countries, from entering United States. The opposition came from inside more than even the opposition that happened outside of the states itself. It means simply that we remember always that this country is a country of institutions, well-established institutions. That means simply that he's not going, whether himself or any other president, he is not going to do anything that he personally might see the right thing. From the other hand, we cannot deny for himself as president, as a custodian for the interests of the United States, his viewpoint to protect national security of the United States.
He invented a new word, protectionism.
Protectionism, yes. Yeah, we can call this sort of exaggeration, probably unacceptable amplification of sort of existing threats. We have to admit that such threats are existing. And these countries, mostly countries that suffer from civil wars and internal problems. We talk about Syria, we talk about Iraq, we talk about Yemen, about Somalia, about Sudan, Libya.
Libya and Iran. Those are the 7 countries.
So we talk about countries. Iran, yes, we understand that because of this political
this is another
heat.
issue.
This is another issue.
This is another story.
But set Iran aside.
Yep.
All other 6 countries, they are all suffering from internal problems. Arab countries and Muslim majorities countries. But above or before being of Muslim majorities, they have internal severe problems about civil wars, more or less. So yes, he might be have enough justification in front of his supporters or his people in the United States in general to say, yes, I'm imposing
What
ban.
you're saying, sir, is that the sectarian strife and the civil war inside those countries was one of the main reasons or the excuses or the arguments of Donald Trump to impose this ban on those citizens coming from these 7 countries. Of course, as we are sidelining Iran.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. And that's exactly also what he reiterated, and the closest counselors for the president there, they said it even repeatedly. So the good news is, yes, whoever and whatever decisions are being made in this line of what he might see as protection of the internal security of the state itself. There are other institutions there strong enough to stop this and to say, no, Mr. President, your orders cannot be executed. And that's what happened. About not his actually, United States commitment towards some Arab countries, because the deep involvement of U.S. policies into these countries and some of the side effects of their intervention is, this huge number of refugees in Syria and in Iraq specifically. United States has the upper hand into the situation in Iraq since they toppled Saddam Hussein in 2003. And following this, the case, and even before this, but officially opening the fire in Iraq was after 2003, after U.S. invasion to Iraq.
The 20th of March 2003, meaning 14 years
That's opened the hell, the doors of hell, and has driven millions of Iraqi refugees outside of Iraq. Should U.S. intervention not happen there, these millions of refugees wouldn't have gone outside of Iraq. So United States policies more or less caused this disaster to happen or at least in several countries of these 7 countries. So probably the previous administration, they have this humanitarian sensation that since we were so involved in these countries and more or less we were not able to control the outbreak of violence and clashes in these countries, we have to accept even on terms of humanitarian basis, we have to accept refugees from these countries. It looks like this is not the situation for President Donald Trump, and he has another point. Hopefully that this is not going to continue for a long time, and he's going to revise this situation, and probably the internal strong opposition judiciary and not only judiciary, by the way, most of the civil society institutions in the United States, and they are very strong. They are against this move.
Right. Shall we talk about his cabinet, the new cabinet of the new U.S. administration? President Donald Trump, of course, he formed a new cabinet. Let's talk about certain positions that are being now occupied. The Attorney General, for example, the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of Defense. There were certain descriptions for each character of them. People talked more about the judge, since we're talking about that he chose, since we're talking about the travel ban that was on the 7 countries that was signed against the 7 countries. So how would you read the news coming about, or the information coming about the new cabinet of the new U.S. administration?
Well, the image is clear enough. He relies more on the military, on the power. This is very visible in his selection to Michael Flynn and to National Security Council, main officers there, who are mostly colonels at the American intelligence and American army before that. And most of them, they
3 generals.
Yeah, and a lot of 3 or 4 colonels also. They are tasked to handle the case or the situation in Iraq, in Iran, and in Syria, and most of the from national security, American national security side. So
and insurgency experts also.
Yeah, and of course, yeah. That means simply that he relies more today.
That's delivering a very strong message.
Exactly. That's exactly. I totally agree with you. The message is so clear and so strong as well that he is not going to rely on diplomacy. He is going to rely more.
And that he is not going to be lenient on certain actions.
Exactly. Of course, it's still so early to judge his orientation in the region. But from this, early moves that from his selection, it looks like he prefers the military solutions and strategic solutions rather than the diplomacy. Will that happen on the ground?
Clear-cut
measures. Yes, and probably this is even more matching to what have appeared from his personality image that people can judge through the last or the past few weeks since he was he sworn in office. So we talk about controversial moves still so far, about let us say blatant confrontation of issues that have for long been confronted with diplomacy, even very smooth and quiet diplomacy, rather than open confrontation and solid coalescive procedures. I think that this is not going to continue for a long time. There are variables of the American policies, but they are also very stable take-off points of this policy in the region. Of course, they are concerned about stability of Israel. They are concerned about the supremacy of Israeli presence and protection. And of course, they are going to protect more or less their closer allies in the region. On top of them, of course, we talk about Saudi Arabia, we talk about also Egypt is close ally, has been close ally to the United States for a long time, and we have to preserve our strategic relations with the United States. But we have also to reach this point of balance between, being allies to the United States in this tough time of new president, new administration, and new methodologies of handling our problems, and the open policy of the United States to support Israel and to keep Israel on top of events in the region. We have as Arabs to be, to look into ways to make this happen on the ground in a more acceptable way for us. I mean, United States have been playing the role of judge in the region for a long time. And so far, it hasn't been good judge, by the way, very unjust
Until the
judge.
moment, it's still the same.
Yeah, it's still the same.
And if we are going to tackle the actions which were taken just 24 hours ago with the U.S. objection to the decision by Antonio Guterres, or Guterres.
Antonio
Gina,
Guterres,
would you please help me with that? Am I pronouncing his name right?
Guterres?
Guterres,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
This man,
Yeah.
the new UN General Secretary, as he was planning to have Salam Fayyad, the former Palestinian Prime Minister, to be his special envoy to Libya.
Exactly.
I don't know why the Americans objected this decision. And this was a source, of course, of condemnation from the Palestinian side, because there was no specific reason behind this. In addition to Donald Trump's decision to appoint a hardliner attorney to be his ambassador in Tel Aviv, in addition to his comments just also 24 hours ago when he had an interview with an Israeli newspaper saying that the Israeli settlements are not good for peace, but they are not an obstacle on the way, and that he loves Netanyahu. How I can interpret these remarks and these actions to what he is going to do on the ground as the key player in the Middle East peace process?
Yeah, I agree with you. It looks like today that the United States policies in the Middle East area, and specifically when it comes to Palestinian cause, is making an obvious shift towards Israel. Although this shift have been made before, since the first moment of intervention of U.S. that, keeping the interests of Israel, always the upper hand in the situation. But that was not so open like it happens today.
Yes.
Even the justification that was presented by the U.S. ambassador to the UN, justifying the rejection of appointment of Salam Fayyad was really, well, let us say, ridiculous and comic.
Yes.
Because what she said is simply that she accused United Nations of having been always in its policies in favor of Palestinians against Israel. So I smiled, because I smiled while at the very same time it's really comic, but it's also disastrous. Because
simply they do not want any Palestinian high-ranking official to occupy an international post. Till when?
Yes, that's sort of expression of what we can call the power politics or the domination politics. It's not new in the United Nations this sort of actions and behaviors of super. But this one is really, as I said, ridiculous and also comic at the very same time, which makes it even more fun and more severe at the same time, because the United Nations have been trying for years and years to intervene effectively in the Palestinian cause without any positive feedback. Even the issues, the decisions that have been issued or issued long time ago, like Security Council Resolution 242 and 338, which should have given executive power of execution on the ground.
On paper.
It's all. It's just a mere paper. So we talk about an imaginary organization called United Nations when it comes to Israel.
Yeah.
So So we talk about today. As I said at the beginning, he is the president. President Trump is as an expression of a point or viewpoint of the Republican Party. We have to remember a fact that all military interventions in the region, most of them, if not all of them, as long as I remember, were done under Republican presidents. Talk about intervention into Kuwait from Iraq.
For example, yes.
We talk about intervention into Iraq from United States, Bush the father and Bush the son. They both Republicans. So we talk about a party policy that is more, let us say, blatant, more courageous, more bold in terms of expressing their political points. And these political points are expression of their own interests as they interpret or as they see it. On top of this interest, as I said, is the stability of Israel.
Yes.
This is not new message, by the way, and I just wonder, you know, how long the Arab countries will take time to absorb and understand this message. So this is a real challenge today. We talk about more or less unchangeable American policies in the region when it comes to Palestinian cause. But we talk also about more threatening, declining situation of the stability and security in the region. Most of the Arab countries today in the region are suffering from problems. And 4 countries already have collapsed. We talk about Syria, Iraq, Libya, Yemen. All these countries now, they have severe problems, and God only knows when they will come back to their sanity and become one state again. So
let's cross our fingers and wish that tomorrow is going to be another day. Professor Dr. Ibrahim Ghazawy, our political and strategic expert, thank you very much, sir, for your input.
Thank you for coming, Dr. Ghazawy. We're going to go to a short break and we'll come back to you. Stay with us.